Good morning, everybody. My name is Waldo, and I'm just going to get started with the politics news. I've got my friend Modular on the way. We are going to talk about the news, all kinds of fun stuff. Let me get chat started and a call going. Might have a chatter today. Would be exciting. Let me get chat started. And one of these days, maybe I'll figure out how to do this right. I think that does it. Yeah, there it is. There's YouTube chat. Right, let's give Modular a call, see if he's up and available. I bet he is. Till then, I have a chat right here. I wonder if I can get that chat window somewhere else so that I can see it as well while I'm typing stuff in. So I only have one camera, so I'm not entirely sure how it works. Could probably just go to the thing right there. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So if I can type in my own chat. It'll show up there and I can see it. Okay. I'm so smart. Not really. Let's probably just play a video game until it shows up. That way we can not have dead air. Let's see. About some Vampire Survivors. Until Modular calls me back. And then we can talk about the news and stuff. Look at all these characters. You don't have any of these characters, do you? They're very good. But this one's my favorite. Garbage weapons. Water, always good.
Hello.
Oh, hey, what's happening?
Not too much. Turn you up real quick.
Okay.
How was your break?
Oh, it was good. Did all the Christmas stuff. I bought my boy a keyboard so he could make music for his video games. He's been,
Nice.
uh,
I recently bought a keyboard as well.
oh yeah, he's been just
Yeah.
stealing music for the games he makes. So he makes silly little games on and puts them up on itch.io or whatever it is, and then he's just been
Okay.
stealing music from video games, which is apparently not appreciated.
No, it's not, unfortunately. They have this thing, it's called copyright.
Uh-huh.
But,
He'd never heard of it, so. Uh,
ah, yeah, that'll do it.
so yeah, he's in it. Connects to his computer and everything like that. So he just can bang away on the keyboard and then um, save it to his computer and stuff like that. And
Pretty solid.
I'm gonna share my screen with you like normal.
All right.
I started playing Vampire Survivor while I was waiting for you. Uh, like a real streamer, right?
Of course. Oh, that's what that game is called.
Yeah, there's a Vampire Survivor. Yeah,
I've seen streamers play that.
yeah, I love it. It's so simple and stupid, complicated and beautiful. What about you? Did you have a good Christmassy time?
Yeah, it was nice. I visited the family and, uh, you know, hung out and then flew back, and I still had a few days left of the holidays left. So,
Yeah, always important to squeeze in a few
oh
extra
yeah,
days off after that. Yeah.
yeah, you always got to have that vacation after the vacation.
Hmm.
So that's what I did, and now I'm back to work, and yeah, my sleep schedule's a little ruined. Are we live right now or no?
We are. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you.
Oh, okay,
Because I started streaming the video game and just left the call ringing on your end
gotcha.
until you jumped in, and I didn't even know you were there until you said something.
Yeah, my sleep schedule's a little ruined for work-related reasons, not because of New Year's or anything, unfortunately. So uh, that happened, but yeah. I'm working on getting that fixed this weekend. I managed to go to bed last night with the help of some melatonin at around 10 o'clock.
Hmm.
And of course, that's not when I've been sleeping. It's been during the day lately because of my sleep schedule being ruined. But
Right.
I managed to sleep until about 5:30 this morning. That was nice. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm almost back on track.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm old, so I didn't do anything fun for New Year's. But the people in the neighborhood fire off fireworks, and then my little yappy dog just yaps at them all night long.
Nice. That sounds horrible.
It is. He never stops yapping. That's what he does. You'll probably hear him in the background at some point today. As you
Alrighty.
do on almost all the streams, like he just yaps. That's what he does. Um, let's see. I'm gonna stop this right here and go back to here. We can do the news if you're ready. Was there anything you wanted to send me, or any links or anything important that you wanted to jump on?
No, I meant to look into a few things because I know I saw some stuff over the break, but then of course the exhaustion hit me, and I ended up passing out for most of the day.
Yeah, that
So
happens.
yeah, I'm sure we can find something.
Yeah, there's not too much news. It's been kind of quiet, but I mean, the couple of big things going on. that I will bring up now. Here go. And oh, come on, you. There we go. There's a House Speaker at last. As of like late last night, they finally elected Kevin McCarthy in the 15th vote.
Yes.
So just seems like chaos to me. Matt Gaetz is a chaotic, evil person. He's chaotic evil, I think. And he just wants concessions. Then he got some. Then he said, no, still not enough. And then he got some more concessions. Still not enough. Finally, he got a couple of the concessions that he wanted and was like, okay, 15 is enough, I suppose. Let's see. There is a concession for any lawmaker. This report says anyone can recall Kevin McCarthy as Speaker at any time. And then they have to do this vote over again. So awesome. I expect it to happen a lot over the next couple of years. I don't know if that includes any Democrats. Any lawmaker be able to call for his removal at any time. Now, I don't know if that includes Democrats at the moment, because that would be funny.
It'd be interesting.
They wouldn't do it right away. They're not going to do it tomorrow, if they're allowed to. But maybe they wait until like an opportune time to call for his removal, and it'll just be one of them, you know. And the Matt Gaetz is going to do this whenever he doesn't get his way. If he thinks he's not getting what he wants, he is going to call on this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't say that it really will matter. I think that the House is already hamstrung anyway, especially for the fact that it's, we now have a split legislature.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really going to matter when the debt ceiling pops up.
Yes, that's definitely a possibility.
Because if Kevin McCarthy does just the basic Republican things, he does just the basic Republican line. He'll say, no, we don't want to raise the debt ceiling, but I mean,
they will.
Republicans always do.
Right.
Both parties always do. The debt ceiling is not a real thing. It's an imaginary nonsense thing that they invented to irritate the other side. So he will try to pass it, but in trying to pass it, he'll throw some extra stipulations in there or something like that, and then Matt Gaetz won't like the stipulations, or they won't be hard enough for him. They won't be hard right stipulations like investigating Biden or investigating the IRS or something along those lines. And he will call for another vote for Speaker. And then the government will shut down again.
Well, I hope it's not something silly like investigating Biden. That would be waste.
He's mentioned it in the past week. He's mentioned, hey, that was one of the concessions that he wanted, is some sort of guarantee from McCarthy that he's going to investigate Biden.
Sure. I mean, these investigations never come to anything, so that would be a waste to me. I mean, I don't mind it. Honestly, it's exactly what you were just saying. It seems a lot like the more moderate Republicans only just they say what they think will get them the votes, and then they vote with the Democrats anyway. So, for the more hardliners to draw these concessions, I'm fine with.
Well, I think it's just going to slow them down even more.
I think it forces the Republicans to actually be Republicans.
Is Matt Gaetz a Republican?
Yes.
I think he's an extremist. I think he's so far hard right that he's out of touch with normal reality.
Interesting. In what ways?
Uh, he wants to investigate Biden for no good reason. He wants to. I can look up his specific positions, but uh, he is all in on the culture war and huge build the wall, which I again most Republicans say but don't really mean. Um, and you probably don't even appreciate that they say they want to build a wall but then never do.
Yeah, I hate that.
I I
If they're
think
gonna say it, do it.
I know. If they're not going to do it, don't say it, uh, because then it gives hardliners like Gates the idea that it should be done. Um, and then he takes a hard stance, says, "Yeah, let's do it," and then they're like, "Meh, we just talk about that shit. We don't actually do it." I think that's a shit way of governing. I think the wall is a dumb fuck idea, and we shouldn't ever do it. And I will tell you we shouldn't ever do it. I'm not going to say, hey, we shouldn't do it, but then try to get it done. I mean, it's weird to be a Republican.
Be a rhino. Yeah, it's weird
Well,
to be a rhino.
well, rhinos get elected.
I know,
Uh,
but they get elected by saying the things that
I know it's
Republicans
weird,
want to hear.
right? Well, yeah,
They get elected by lying, and what Gates has done here is essentially force them to lie less.
right. And in doing
Great.
so, he
I'm fully in favor of that.
okay. Well, I'm fully out of favor of doing what Gates thinks we should do. I think he's dangerous.
That's fine. I'm just in
Yeah,
favor of politicians lying less.
I know.
So if they stop giving lip service to causes that people might actually the people vote for them, but then never gets done, then maybe you'll have your way and they just won't be elected anymore.
That's what I think. I'm thinking.
But if I have my way, they'll actually start doing the things that they say they'll do.
Oh, and then we'll be miserable.
I think it'll be great.
Uh, I was looking for his positions. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and he's a big Trump fan. But yeah, he called on Trump to like. Well, no, never mind. Uh, he did vote for Trump once as Speaker, which I thought might have been his plan all along, is to make it miserable and then elect Donald Trump as Speaker of the House. But that
He did vote in favor of at least one pro cannabis law.
yeah, but he considers himself a libertarian, which is why libertarians are generally Republicans who want to smoke pot.
Fair enough.
Usually that's how I would uh, describe them. Um, yeah, I think he is one of the few honest Republicans.
Great. We need more honest Republicans.
We need fewer Republicans. uh, and and I'm glad when they're honest because then I can say, hey, you guys, here's what actual Republicans are, not this wishy-washy rhino stuff. The wishy-washy rhino stuff, I think, gets elected, and real Republicans don't. Um, yeah, I wish all the wishy-washy rhinos would either be honest with what they want, which is nothing really, just keep the status quo, uh, and then we can see who thinks what. Yeah, and then vote them all out. Yay! Well, that's just my idea. I'm not going to go into his legal issues right now. But yeah, he's Florida. He is a Florida man. but we have a House Speaker of the House now, and
Yeah, and I believe McCarthy is from California.
yeah, he's a California,
Yeah.
where you have to be wishy-washy or you can't get elected as a Republican. If he said the things that Matt Gaetz says, he wouldn't get elected because the people wouldn't want him. So he has to slow walk the Republican talking points. He has to say
Yeah.
them in a middle of the road way, so that people are okay with it. I suppose.
I'm interested to see how much actually gets done in the next
I don't think it'll be much,
couple of
honestly.
years.
I think he should have. I mean, he could have solved it after the second vote if he had gone the other way with it. Give 5 concessions to 5 Democrats, and then all of a sudden they would have voted for him, and he would have been done after 2 or 3 votes. And then he could have claimed bipartisanship. And then the Dems could have claimed bipartisanship and made Matt Gaetz look stupid.
Yeah. Although, politically speaking, I mean, for the media to be able to go on about how the Republicans took 15 ballots to get a Speaker of the House going is, for the Democrats, I mean, the longer that it takes for a new Speaker to be elected, the better it is politically for them. So I could see why they wouldn't even offer concessions.
Maybe. I could see the seat going the other way. Oh, we voted for him because he gave us concessions. We're middle of the aisle. We're middle of the road. Normies love that.
Yeah, I find that they love that less and less nowadays, though.
Think so? Okay.
I think people are becoming more radicalized onto their own particular side. We're seeing that a lot in Congress, especially where almost every vote is split directly down the middle, or directly along party lines, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one suggests both parties. One change in particular, which empowers a single lawmaker to launch the process of ousting the Speaker. It's giving heartburn to lawmakers of both parties.
How would you like to do this every week? He said.
How'd you like to do this every week? It might happen.
Incredible.
And it weakens the Speaker and strengthens the smallest caucus of all the caucuses. So yeah, Matt Gaetz and his friends are just going to shut it down every week. Possibly. Hey, government doesn't work. Elect us and we'll prove it. Let's see. I thought he tried to get seats for himself and his friends on committees as well, but I don't think it went through. I think they stuck with seniority.
I think I love that the fact is that they don't even consider the idea of balancing the budget. They're just like, hey, we need to raise the debt ceiling over and over and over and over again. It's very frustrating.
The debt ceiling isn't a real thing. It's not a thing. Like, it's an invented arbitrary number.
Well, yes, but the idea is to keep us from spending too much. I mean, the country is what, 30 some odd trillion in debt now.
Well, that's how governments operate. That's just normal.
I don't think it is.
I mean, there's money going into the government, and there's money coming out. It's not like a bill came in and they sat there for 30 years while nobody paid it.
Well, the problem is there's more money going out than coming in.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That is a problem.
Which is what is debt. That's debt.
Right. So they should tax people appropriately.
Sure. Taxes can be one side of the equation. We should also stop spending money on worthless stuff.
I can agree. If we're spending money on worthless stuff, we should not do that.
Yeah.
But
I
what
mean,
is the worthless stuff
we
and what
should
is
we should go line
important?
by line one of these days into the omnibus bill and see what's
Yeah.
actually worthwhile.
Yeah. Um, here you go. In 2022, the IRS went after the very poorest taxpayers. So instead of so the IRS that nobody likes got 80 billion in funding, and
Yeah, to hire 87,000 new agents to harass these people.
to harass poor people. They ought to have been harassing rich people, but rich people have lawyers, and those
There are only
lawyers,
so many rich people.
I know, but you,
So you hire 87,000 new employees to harass these people. They're going to go after the people that aren't currently being harassed, which is the poor.
which are easier. It's easier to do. Low-income wage earners taking the earned income tax credit uh, that are the poorest taxpayers are easy marks in the era when IRS increasingly relies upon correspondent audits. It doesn't have the resources to assist taxpayers and answer their questions. So yeah, the IRS is not doing a very good job right now. They ought to be collecting from people who are defrauding the system or cheating on their taxes, but they're just going after poor people who don't know what they're doing. It is a leadership issue, I think.
In what way?
Um, the leadership of the IRS says, hey, you have to uh, do this many audits or something along those lines. And if you sent an auditor to a wealthy person, that wealthy person then hires a lawyer, and you have to fight it, and that takes time and effort, and then you have to get records, and then the lawyer argues with you, and then you have to send something back, and then it's just slower and more difficult. Uh, Easy marks. The poor people don't have lawyers. You send them something in the mail, they read it, they either respond or they don't, or then you move on to the next one, and you can send out thousands of them. Uh,
Okay.
so it's easier to do. And then your job as an IRS agent, you did 1,000 of these audits instead of two.
Well, I'll ask you this. Do you think that the IRS needed $80 billion to hire uh, 87,000 new agents?
Yes. And then once they got there, the leadership of the IRS dorked it up and said, "Hey, you have to do this many." It's a corporate culture kind of thing. Instead of using that 80 billion to go after uh, people who ought to be paying more taxes, they went after the easy stuff. It's like I don't want to change it to uh, immigration right now, but the immigration, if you were an immigration officer and you had to arrest somebody, would you want to arrest a very well armed drug dealer who's inside a fortress, or would you want to arrest the guy taking his kids to school on a Tuesday? You go after the guy taking his kids to school on a Tuesday because that's another number for you. You get +1 on your uh, count, and it was easy. It wasn't difficult. So I think that's what we're kind of looking at. The poor people don't have uh, an understanding of the system, and if it's from low income wage earners not understanding how the hell the system works, it's easy to it's a +1 to you. If I am a IRS agent, I have a complicated offshore account that I can look at with 7 lawyers who are going to fight me every single step of the way, or I can knock out 7 of these poor people real quick, and I got 7 done. I put that on my marks at the end of the year, and I say, "Wee, I did it! I did 7 instead of 1 really difficult one." That's a leadership issue.
Yeah, see, I think for people with less than a certain amount of income, we should probably go ahead and do return-free filing.
I think that's a fine idea as well.
Problem is that nobody will pass it.
I know because there are so many jobs on the line. TurboTax loses a bunch of money. H&R Block loses customers if taxes are easy and simple. They don't want. I mean, that's a side effect of capitalism, right?
Mm.
The jobs of
It's a side effect of buying politicians.
how do you figure?
Well, the tax preparation companies, like Intuit, for example, they pay the politicians not to pass return-free filing legislation. Right? They're lobbying.
Yeah, right. They're lobbying. That's a side effect of capitalism. Lobbying is a symptom of capitalism. It's a thing that will happen under every type of capitalist system. Using money.
I think it happens under every system.
Well,
your large corporate. I mean, these people just become the czars in your communist systems,
right?
That then end up making.
Yeah, it would be cronyism.
Yeah.
Cronyism. Yeah, rather than money. Hey, my cousin runs this thing. Can you?
Yeah, so you end up with the same exact problem under different circumstances.
So it's a people problem. We need fewer people.
It's a corruption problem is what it is. And corruption exists in every system.
Yeah, 1.1 billion in child welfare payments to the wrong people over the course of 5 months during the pandemic.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I know it's backward facing, but what if they had enough people to do a good job the first time? We never have enough money to do it right the first time, but we always have money to do it twice.
Of course.
So that's why I support the idea of funding the IRS. Not because I love the idea that they audit poor people. I would like them to do a good job the first time.
Right. I would have to know what the system is that they're using to determine who's getting those child welfare payments is, and whether it's a matter of data entry that went wrong, whether something could be automated that could have prevented that. I mean, having 87,000 new people could fix the problem, but it might not. You know, it might be a fact of the matter that just certain things didn't get reported to the IRS, like new addresses or children turning 18, and there wasn't an automated system to take them off the rolls for who gets child welfare payments anymore, so people still got them anyway. And so I would have to be able to see what exactly went wrong there in order to say, like, yeah, we should be giving the IRS $80 billion more to hire 87,000 new employees so that they can fix these problems. Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, and I assume it's a leadership problem within the IRS. They made this mistake, and because they weren't keeping up with stuff, and they asked, I mean, the $80 billion dollars given to them was probably requested by the IRS. And if their leadership said, hey, we need 80 billion and we need these 80,000 people to do the job, then they were given it, and they're not doing a good job with the resources we gave them, you know?
Of course. No, I totally agree. None of the government ever does a good job with the resources we give them. Which is why I like less government.
I know, but what fills in the gap?
More efficient corporations.
Because they're great. See, I think they do just as shitty a job, and you can't hold them responsible. There's a chance that if the IRS does a bad job, we get to fire the guy.
Well, I guess case in point would be SpaceX.
Who's in charge? What do you? I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, we had NASA for a very long time, but NASA stopped doing anything. Because we essentially stopped space exploration. Um, and then SpaceX came around and filled the gap. And now we're back in space again, and we're launching prototype rockets, and we're making all sorts of progress that hadn't been made in decades.
Is that because NASA lost funding and wasn't allowed to do it anymore?
It's possible, but it's also possible that SpaceX came around and was just more efficient.
Maybe. I don't know where they're getting that efficiency, by either cutting funding or dodging regulations or something along those lines. But maybe they're not. That's baseless accusation on my part. But if they stopped doing work, I would be curious why. And well, yeah, and
they receive a pretty consistent 20 to 25 $1 billion a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or hold on, what is
right
if the number is 24,000 and then it's in millions?
No,
is that
billions, right?
24 billion? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Right there. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if they're receiving a pretty consistent $24 billion.
I mean, they're putting robots on Mars, right?
Sure.
They're running the ISS, which is doing experiments and shit. That's what we've got lately.
My understanding was that SpaceX was several times cheaper than NASA, and I'm looking it up now. Hold on.
Okay.
And first result, SpaceX versus NASA. SpaceX is 10 times cheaper with 30 times lower cost overrun than NASA in lifting payload into space.
That probably true. What's the source on that, though? If it's Elon Musk, I probably wouldn't trust it. But
it's from Medium.com. I mean, not the greatest of sources, but I mean,
say why?
It's the first. It was the first link. Hold on. Let's see. Let's find out why.
Does it say why? Yeah, because if it says why, I would I'd read it and determine it. Because yeah, the thing that I think the left and the right actually need to discuss and argue is what the government does and how much of it they do. I recognize that sometimes a company can do it better. And if this is a case of a company doing it better, then let's just go with the company. I mean, I think UPS and FedEx and stuff like that are probably better at delivering the mail than the federal post office. But because the Constitution says we have to have a post office, that you can't get rid of it, and we have to make laws governing what the UPS and the FedEx can do that the post office can't, and stuff like that. So,
well, the post office mainly exists at this point to deliver to areas that are not feasible for USPS and FedEx to deliver to.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's that old saying, I don't know if it's true or not, but what's the one thing you need to establish a town? It's a post office, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at with the question of government, is that government should be there to fill in the blanks. But in general, these corporations do things a lot better anyway. And I'm looking here at SpaceX article where the total development cost for the Falcon 9 rocket was approximately $390 million, whereas NASA's own report says that the predicted cost to develop the Falcon 9 would have been between 1.7 billion and $4 billion,
Okay.
which is at the $4 billion mark. That's where the 10 times cost figure is coming from in that article, I think.
Okay. And is there a reason for it? Is it just because they buy cheaper parts, or they get to do develop their own solutions as SpaceX? Or I'm just curious if there's a overall reason for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sorry, is there a reason for it?
It's got to be the systems that the government has in place versus the ones that SpaceX has in place. The regulations about, or rather, the talent that SpaceX is able to attract. I mean, the government has a certain amount they're allowed to pay people,
Okay.
and then SpaceX can just pay them more, but then get better talent that can develop things substantially better. Then we have a problem with government there.
Okay.
Let's see. It looks like there's also a different strategy, which government is notoriously slow to switch strategies in terms of development. So NASA has what's it called? A bespoke strategy versus SpaceX's platform strategy.
Okay. Yeah. And I think there's room for that. I think that should be uh, one of the things that actually is argued is, hey, this company can do it better than the government, so let them, and I'm okay with that. But it depends on where, and that should be the basis of all our arguments. But if we abandon all the culture war stuff, I think that's actually the thing that ought to be debated between the left and the right. Uh, hey, let this company do space stuff, or explaining why the government would be a better choice, why we should give the government that money. Things like the mail, or honestly healthcare. Uh, Probably don't want to get into healthcare right now, but honestly, I think the for-profit private company model is a nightmare right now,
We
and they're
gave
doing a bad job of it.
If we had a week to prepare for that one,
Hmm.
if you want to do that on Saturday next week, then I'm down for that.
Okay.
You're talking about the universal healthcare model versus the system we have in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can schedule that for next week.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Because I think that's an actual debate thing that we ought to be pushing towards.
Yeah, and based on my research, I could end up coming to the conclusion that maybe our current model isn't the best one.
And
But
and usually I think it's because that they're looking for profits, which is why I think the SpaceX is working as well. SpaceX wants those satellites up there so that it can start beaming down internet and charging people for it. And
yeah,
that is a business model. I recognize that. Uh, the government always works at a loss because it is not a profit generating machine. I want the government to test those things. I want the government to experiment with spaceflight, and then a company can come in later. I mean, it's very similar to the internet, right? The government invents the internet, and then they let the companies come in and they make it better. Uh,
I don't know if the government invented the internet either.
hmm,
Um,
was ARPANET or
I
whatever,
think
right?
I think ARPANET was one thing, but then also there was another network that primarily was used by colleges and universities,
Hmm.
which was developed, I believe, separately.
Okay.
That was part of the development of the internet as well.
Okay.
So it wasn't all the government in that case. Um, but the whole development of the internet is a whole history in it.
Hmm.
So, but the question of insurance is one that gets me. That I have an interesting perspective on. I think
Hmm.
because it's one of those things that sort of like government-backed student loans. I think creates an issue, and that issue is that a certain amount of guaranteed free money is always going to be taken advantage of. So, in the case of insurance, if you know that somebody has insurance and you're a doctor or you're a pharmaceutical company, then you know you can charge however much you want for your product because insurance will cover it.
Hmm.
In the same way that if you're a college or university, you know that you can continue and continue to increase your tuition fees, and you can increase the amount of staff that you have on hand. And you can increase the amount that that staff is paid, whether or not that actually improves the educational experience, which it doesn't.
Hmm.
And as you continue to do that, you can continue to increase those tuitions, and the banks will hand out loans because they're all government backed, and the money is constantly flowing. It's all free money,
That's not
and
a
we have
government problem.
problems.
That's a capitalism. That's a flaw in capitalism. You found the capitalism loophole.
Yeah, when we have problems that exist with free money, then that, of course you're gonna have negative feedback loops.
Sure. And the solution to that, I don't think, could be a company that is working for profit.
Well, the solution in terms of student loans, at the very least, would be to
Proper regulation.
remove what's that?
Regulation. Government regulation.
No, on the contrary, it's less government regulation.
Mm.
It would be to eliminate government-backed student loans, so that when a student loan is given, it reintroduces risk to the system.
Which means that only the wealthy will get it, which is another capitalism problem. The
Only
reason.
until, hold on, only until colleges and universities are able to cut their costs again and bring tuition down, and then it becomes more affordable for people again. Because the free money cycle has inflated these prices so much that, yes, the initial impact of eliminating free money is that some people are not going to be able to afford college. Yes. However, that is going to cause colleges and universities to cut their budgets. That means that they're going to have to cut the fat and go back to when college was affordable on your typical 9 to 5 job or working overtime. You hear about all the boomers that always tell us about how, oh yeah, I paid my whole way through college working a part-time job at fucking McDonald's. And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, well you can't do that anymore. And the reason for that is because of the free money cycle. And you have to eliminate the free money cycle, and yes, there will be some pain. However, eventually the fat will be trimmed and we'll be back to being able to pay for college with your McDonald's salary, but your McDonald's pay.
Oh, I think that fat to be trimmed that you mentioned will be poor people. It won't be the money that the owners and the operators of the and the administrators of the colleges get paid. They will not take a pay cut. The fat that will be trimmed will be the poor, and that
Well,
happens because there is no government regulation. I think this is a lack of government regulation. The free money
what do you,
cycle exists because the government isn't telling you not to do it.
no, what I'm saying is, I don't understand what you mean by the fat that will be trimmed is the poor.
The uh, the
I'm saying,
administrator of the college makes
uh-huh.
$100,000 a year, or how much does he make? I don't know, $300,000 a year, something along those lines. Or and
Depends on the college.
he's making a large amount of money. He does not want to make less money. He does not want less money coming into his school. So if that free money cycle is disrupted, he will trim the fat, and the fat will be, okay, we don't allow these. If these loans dry up, then the poor people won't get the loans, and then the poor people won't come to school, and then only the wealthy will go.
Okay.
And then they will take the amount that they're getting from the wealthy and then invest that in the school in the ways that they can.
The problem is that there are not enough wealthy people to maintain the funding of those schools if you turn the free money tap off.
Right.
Which means that you have to cut spending at the colleges and universities, or lower your tuition.
Yes, they will cut that spending after all the poor people stop showing up.
Yes, I just said that
So
there is going to
pain.
be yes, there is going to be some pain until we get back to the point where it becomes more affordable for everybody. But the fact that this free money spigot was turned on in the first place is what has caused this problem.
The fact that this free money spigot was turned on without regulation is the problem, I think.
Well, introducing the regulation would how would you even implement regulation in that case? Would you say that you can only increase tuition by X amount per year?
Yeah, do it. Hit them. You can only do this and you can only do that. Yeah, absolutely. That's what governments are supposed to do. It's like regulate out of control corporations. There's only I'm gonna get a little bit fundamental here. There are only two powers: people power and capitalism power. That's it. That's all there is. If you have a hole in your street, either you fill it yourself, or you get all your friends to fill it, or you pay somebody to do it. This is a bad example. If you have to move your house, I'm changing examples. You have to move. You have to move from one house to another. There are two options. One, you do it yourself. You do it with your friends. They help you because they like you. Option number two, you pay someone to do it. That's all there is. So there are only two powers within our country, and that is the people power, the democracy, and the money. So any job, anything you want done, has to be done by one of those two ways. Either a bunch of people get together and do it, and organize and put themselves together and do the thing, and make a government and make a group of people who do the thing, or you pay somebody to do it. Similar to NASA, there's NASA is people, SpaceX is money.
I think that is a very oversimplified characterization.
I am simplifying things. Yes.
In terms of and I really don't see how that comes around to the argument in applying legislation.
Applying it to college.
Or applying regulation, that is.
Well,
so
either we let the corporation do it, which will turn it into just money, and it will be the situation you described, where you can only go if you get paid, if you can't afford it, and the only people who can afford it are going to be the wealthy, or people who can get loans because they're wealthy enough to for a bank to assume that they can pay it back, or it's for the government to step in and regulate the things. And I am for the government regulation of that.
I see. So, in what way, at this point, would you propose regulating the colleges in order to prevent the problem that we have right now, which is a nearly $2 trillion student debt bubble, and tuitions continue to increase, and fees and boarding and all that continues to increase for colleges every single year?
Either force them by law to lower their prices, or put in a list of criteria that the college has to meet if they're going to get that money. Because you say it's a free money spigot. Well, put some rules on the people who are at the free money spigot. Put some regulations on the people that are at that free money spigot. Say, hey, you're the free money spigot. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to offer this many tuition-free things to the local population. You have to give this many to poor people. You have to give this many to uh, uh, underprivileged individuals. And if you can prove that, we'll let you come to the free money spigot.
So rather than fixing the problem of the free money spigot, you just want to regulate the outcome of it.
Yes.
See, this is where we fundamentally disagree.
Right, because that's what government is supposed to do. But you don't like government. I know.
Well, the problem is that every time the government does something, it creates a new problem. So for example, the free money spigot.
Mm-hmm.
Very well intended. It was designed to
help the poor people get to college. Yeah.
It was designed to help people go to college, but it was also designed. Well, yes, that was part of it. Another part of it was making it so you can't discharge that money in bankruptcy, for example.
Yeah, terrible idea. Let's disrupt it. Let's do that.
Well, yeah, if you do that, then now then all you're doing is bringing back my strategy, which is to reapply risk to the system. That's my whole thing, is eliminate the fact that you can't discharge student loans in bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to reassign risk to the system. That's what turns the free money spigot off.
You think so?
Yes, 100%.
How would it turn off the money?
Because the fact that the government backs student loans by making it so that you can't discharge them in bankruptcy, and by issuing them itself, the fact that these student loans cannot be discharged is the free money spigot. It means that money is completely risk-free, and if the bank doesn't get it back from you by the time you're in retirement age, it gets garnished from your Social Security.
Okay.
So it's just free money spigot. It's all that is the free money spigot. The fact that you can't discharge in bankruptcy, making it so you can discharge in bankruptcy, reapplies the risk to the calculation, which that is going to introduce a level of pain, because when you have that risk assessment, yes, there are going to be some people in certain income brackets that will not be able to afford college until the cost of college comes back down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the long and short of it. But I think that's necessary. I think that we have to reassign, or we have to reapply the risk to the calculation, and that will affect the supply and demand of college, such that the colleges do have to trim the fat in their administrative departments and in their extracurricular departments, and go back to education and focusing on education, which will reduce, and in order to reduce tuition costs, and then we'll have more people able to go to college again. I mean, the average salary for a professor over the last several decades has not gone up all that much.
Okay.
But the number of non-academic administrative employees at U.S. colleges and universities has more than doubled, and their salaries have more than tripled.
Okay.
That's not helpful to our.
You're suggesting that is because the government is.
Because we have free money. Yes.
Okay.
And I do believe that the actual quality of education has not gone up in that time at college. And let me find that statistic real quick.
Well, this is capitalist corruption, is it not?
It's free money corruption.
Capital. Money is capitalism. So if there's free money lying around, it's going to be all corrupted. And the only thing that can combat capitalist corruption is government. And that's my very simplistic stance, really, is if you have capitalism running amok, you need a government to corral it. If you have a government running amok, you need the people to corral it, I suppose.
I'm saying that the government has opened the gates.
Yeah, they opened the gate, hoping that
we should shut the gate.
And they have you change the shape of the gate, or you change the people at the gate, or you change the amount of gate you have. If you open it and it's wild and everybody's running around, you implement some rules, you implement some regulations, some common sense ideas. If we need people to go to college, or wait, maybe we just change the need to go to college. I've never been, not a single minute of college, but there are people who are necessary. And even then, I think you've got to come up with some sort of incentive for people to go to college other than uh, getting a college loan that you can never pay off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the problem, and you'll never get any argument from me that we have a lot of people that go to college for no reason.
Hmm. Well, and that's
I
that's a
mean,
that's boomer mentality. The
that's
boomers
always
the boomers told us you either have to go to college or you're going to be pumping gas for your entire life, and then they got rid of the gas pumpers. So uh, you're going to be digging ditches if you don't go to college, and so that was what was told to us. I remember hearing that a lot as a young person. You have to go to college. You have to go to college. You have to go to college, or you will be nothing. And maybe we
yeah,
can
that's a
change
cultural thing
our
that should
culture.
go
Maybe
away.
maybe we can change culture to where we don't have to go to college all the time, especially for uh, low wage jobs or low skill jobs and things like that. Um,
By the way, I'm looking at my voice compared to yours on these
mhm.
bars, and you should turn me down a little more.
Let's turn you down a little bit.
There you go.
We have a chatter who could tell us. Kyle has the volume.
Testing, one, two, three.
Yeah, our chatter says community college and tech schools should be free. What
To
do you think
what
about
end?
that? Um, I kind of think uh, that's not. I mean, I love the idea, but I know that it probably would have to be paid for by the government. It wouldn't be free. It would be subsidized by the government. If you want an educated population, you either need to have the government pay to uh, educate them, or a company needs to educate them by being paid. I mean, those are again the only two powers. Either the government does it or the uh, capitalism does it.
Yeah, I find that um, there are a lot of things that are requiring college education right now that where college education is not necessary. Um, how do I put this? Even in high school, there are things I learned in high school that I am never going to need.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to do friggin', trigonometry and calculus in high school,
Right.
and I don't need that. I've never used it since I left high school. I think that that's something that is better off left to the colleges. I think that things that we actually need higher education for are becoming more prevalent, but they're certainly not as prevalent as the college degree currently is.
Okay. And if we were to retool and reassess what is taught in high school, who would do that?
Well, the government would obviously.
Right. We would have to have a Department of Education make decisions. And the latest, biggest decision that they've made, you haven't been a fan of, and that's Common Core.
Only because of what I've seen and heard of it. Um,
Okay, I'm a fan of Common Core. I really liked it. It took some getting used to. It was very difficult. I have a kid who went through he's in school. He went to school, and I didn't. I mean, kindergarten, very beginning. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about with
yeah,
the
it's
Common
where
Core
like
math.
the math is, if you have or you take away the 2 from the 10 and then you add them together and you put the 2 back on it and
Hmm.
uh yeah, I
Um,
could see how that works for some people.
mhm. It was difficult for me to uh, get at the very beginning. But once I got it, I knew what they were going for. What they're trying to do is not have the kids memorize all the things, but to work it out every time. 6 times 8, it's 48. Did I do any math there? No. It has been beaten into my brain through elementary school that 6 times 8 is 48. I don't know how it got there, but that sticks in my brain. 5 times 7, 35. That's not, I didn't do any math. It's memorized. It's stuck in here. And they want to get away from that. They want every time you see the problem to start working it out. Because once you get at higher levels of math, algebra, trigonometry, it's less about memorization. And to just give an anecdote, honestly, we moved across the country, and my son went to school, and he had the same math book, and they were doing it the same way, and that made me very happy. When I was a kid, I moved to the next town over, 30 minutes away, and they had all new books, all new teaching strategies. I was in the same school from second grade to third grade, and the second grade teacher taught math this way, the third grade teacher taught it that way. And she said, "Oh, you were in Miss whatever's class? We don't do it like that anymore. You do it this way now." And I was like, what the hell? Even as a little kid, I was like, well, can you guys not get your stuff straight? Can the third grade teacher teach the same way as the second in the same school down the hall from each other?
Yeah,
And
you'll always get that in schools. Is teachers have different
unless you have
philosophies.
Common Core, in which they have to teach it the same way. Which is why I'm a bit of a fan of it. I like the idea that if you go to school in Hawaii, you get taught the same things as if you go to school in Florida, and that makes sense to me. Well, Florida's not
Sure.
in love with the Common Core. I think they hate it. Um,
I think it's the method of teaching that I don't like is seeing the Common Core math kind of irks me.
okay,
But
because they're doing
that's
it
where I'm not a fan of it.
because they're
Yeah,
not
because
doing it
it's weird.
differently, or is it just us old? Are we the old boomers now who don't want to
Yeah, I'm the boomer
switch?
now.
Who, yeah, I ain't gonna measure anything in kilograms. Get the damn hell out of here. I
Oh,
ain't,
I'm fine with
I
doing the
ain't,
metric system,
I
but
ain't doing no metric system. My my car gets 13 rods to the goat's head, and that's the way I likes it.
I mean, I'm fine with the metric system. We do all of our engineering in metric.
Hmm,
So
okay. And
teaching metric is fine.
yeah, I'm okay with switching over to the metric system. Just do it after me. Teach my kid the metric system, not me. I'm too old. I don't want to do it. I don't want liters of petrol. I want gallons of gas. American. Uh, but yeah, and when I hear conservative people in my own family complain about the Common Core, I just think that they're being uh, resistant, just because they don't want to change, you know. Not accusing
Yeah,
you of that, but that is the feeling I get sometimes.
being resistant to change is a common uh, thread among conservatives, I think.
Hmm. Well, they have to conserve. They have to keep things still, you know.
All
And
right, every vehicle needs brakes.
yeah, yeah. It's an old. Yeah, I might have already said it before, but the old joke about politics. You put it, or it's just like cars. You put it in D to go forward, and you put it in R to go backwards. And you
Hey,
need
now.
both. And you need both. I put my car in R every day. um, so let's see. I'm gonna bring up. Well, let's go back to the news here. We got Elon Musk gets a world record, largest loss of personal fortune. Funny guy. Um, Guinness World Records. Hooray! You got your record, Elon. You did it.
Nice.
Let's see what else we got. That's the IRS. Um, Mr. Trump still doesn't like mail-in voting. Suggests that everybody ends it. All Republican governors should immediately begin the process of ending mail-in ballots, which are fraught with corruption and always will be, except for faraway military and people with proven illnesses getting voter ID and same-day voting with all paper ballots. This effort should be all out and start immediately. Governors have the power and authority to do this. Get it done, or we will never have honest elections in our country again. He votes by mail. He voted by mail from Florida.
It is true.
What do you think of voter ID?
I love it. As long as it's free.
Like it as long as it's free and easy to get, yeah. But if it's free and easy to get, then everybody gets one.
Yes. Just go to the DMV, tell them who you are, show them your birth certificate or your proof of name and residence with photo ID or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a little plastic card, and then you can vote with it.
Mm-hmm.
You should have to renew it every handful of years in order to
continue.
And
can't we just connect it to your driver's license?
Or
I mean, if you have a driver's license, but the people without one, yeah,
exactly, yeah. So it's got to be its own thing.
Okay.
But in terms of just making it, using it as using an identification system,
mm-hmm.
where we give out voter IDs for free,
mm-hmm.
then yeah, I'm 100% in favor of voter ID.
And Social Security numbers are all jacked up anyway. We're using them way more often than we ought to. We just need a national ID. And then I think instead of getting a driver's license and getting your voting tacked onto the driver's license, you just get a national ID and get the driving tacked onto it. Does that make sense?
That could work, yeah.
And maybe your gun license can go through the same thing. Connect it to your ID. If you want, you go in for the ID. They sign you up to vote, and then you say, hey, I would also like to drive. And they tack that on there. Hey, I would also like to have a concealed firearm. They tack that on there. And then there's paperwork for each one of these things. If you'd like to be a doctor, they tack that on there. And you have to fill out the paperwork. Where did you go to medical school? Do you have and we put all our licenses into one thing. If I would like to be an optometrist, I get it attached to the same way, because there's medical licensing. Many doctors have licenses, right? Lawyers have licenses, right?
Yes, but a lot of these are, especially lawyers, I know for sure, are state-specific licensing.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those things, in terms of a national ID, I could say yes, we could put those on there.
Okay.
But other things like gun licensing, lawyer licensing, those things are licensed only in the state. So that would be tied to a different license. Same for driver's license. Driver's licensing is tied to the state, because different states have different rules on how you acquire your driver's license. Like, I know that when I got my license, I had to pass an actual driver's test.
Mm-hmm.
There are entire states that don't do that. They're just like, oh, you're whatever age, and you've done your permit for however long, and cool, enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that state-specific things would have to be its own license. But sure, for national licenses, you could attach that to the voter's license.
Okay. Cool. January 6th was anniversary, happened yesterday. Ashley Babbitt's mother arrested outside of Capitol. Second anniversary of January 6th riot. I think there's not a lot going on with that, is there? She went to protest, got arrested.
Yeah, there's nothing really there.
Yeah. It's all speculation right now with the prosecutor guy with the Justice Department who may or may not be doing things. So it's still up in the air.
I still
So
find the focus on January 6th to be um, tiresome. Like the whole idea that it was like I'm sure you've seen this sentiment. Maybe you share it, maybe you don't. But the whole sentiment that it's like the worst thing to ever happen. It's worse than 9/11. Uh, I mean, Jesus Christ.
um, I think it's very important and unfinished. It's unresolved at the moment. That's why people are not happy with it. The It's unresolved on both sides. If you were there and think that uh, uh, the 2020 election was illegitimate, the illegitimate guy is still sitting in the White House right now. It's Joe Biden. It's unresolved for those people. For the people on the left who think that those people are crazy, some of them got prosecuted for the crimes that they did, and Donald Trump is still running around and running for president in next year. He's gonna. He's already claimed that he's gonna run. So that is unresolved for me. It's unresolved because I think he did crimes and he just chilling. So it's unresolved for everybody. If you feel it's tiresome, it's because nothing's happening. I'm tired of nothing happening. I would like something to happen.
Well, I'll say this. I know people like I've accepted the election at this point.
Mhm.
I was over it like a week or two after the fact. Um, but for people that still believe that the election was illegitimate, even I know some of them,
Mhm.
and even they're like, dude, I'm just fucking sick of hearing about January 6th. Like, it's over and done. Like, it happened.
It's not
But
over.
the
It's not
fact
done.
that, but the way that it gets overblown is totally ridiculous. Um, that's the thing is like
What's
this
overblown?
idea, the whole idea. It was like the government, like people act like the government came even close to being overthrown.
It came
Give me a
the
break. I mean,
closest that it's ever come. That's the closest our government's ever come to being overthrown.
and it totally
Maybe
blows my
since
mind.
maybe since the Civil War. There might have been more things that happened in the Civil War that could
It
have
it
overthrown our government.
blows my
But
mind entirely that that is even close to a thought that's bandied about. I mean, this is the same side where if I say, we need guns to protect ourselves from the government as a 2A person,
hmm
and a non 2A person says, you're never going to beat the government with your guns, so you don't need them anyway. And then that same person will say that January 6th was very nearly a complete overthrow of our government.
not nearly. I didn't say
Ridiculous.
nearly. Okay, so saying that they almost overthrew the government is an exaggeration, but saying
Wild exaggeration,
that
yes.
someone tried, that's a true statement. That's the closest we've come to an overthrow is, I would also say, a true statement. Since maybe the Civil War, I mean, say, if I made the statement, this is the closest we've come to someone overthrowing the government since the Civil War, I think that's a true statement. It may still be 9 miles away, but 9 miles is closer than we've ever come. And as I
I
said,
mean,
it's not over. It's not done with. It's not resolved. Some of the people went to jail, but I honestly think that Donald Trump wanted it, pushed for it to happen, and intended for it to happen. And
I
he,
understand, but at the same time, you do understand that it's not the first time that there were rioters inside the Capitol building, even in the last, like, decade.
there have been protesters inside there before, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen anybody else breaking down the doors, overcoming the security, running into the halls, and then getting shot. I think that's all new stuff, right? I
Um,
mean, has this happened recently in the past that I just don't know about?
yeah. Let's see. There was the climate protesters in 2020 something.
Okay. How many of them
Let
broke down the doors and got shot?
me check. Everything I fucking find now is on the January 6th. Hold on.
Hmm.
You lefty outlet people and their fucking paywalls.
Yeah.
Hold on. Oh, shit, I clicked the button. And let me turn on. There we go. So I don't know if you have the capability of reading this, but I do.
Okay. You gonna link it to me or put the link in chat or? The okay.
Forcing thousands of the protesters rushed to the state capitol Wednesday night, forcing their way through doors, crawling through windows, and jamming corridors. As word spread of hastily called votes on Governor Scott Walker's controversial bill limiting
Yeah, I
collective
remember
bargaining
this.
rights for public workers.
I remember this. This was in Wisconsin.
Yep. Let's see.
Oh, yeah, it's giving me paywall. Yeah, I can't look at it. It's a paywall, but that is a protest that happened. They filled
Not
up
the
the
same capital,
Wisconsin's
actually.
at the what?
Yeah,
At the
that's
Wisconsin
not the same
state
capital.
capitol. I know that's Wisconsin. I remember when this happened. Uh, I don't remember anybody getting shot, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Those people are protesting an actual problem, a thing that is real. The people on in the national capital on January 6th were not protesting a thing that was real, and I think most of them knew it. They were just upset that they didn't get to win, or they have attached their identity to their human identity to their political preferences. And when your political preferences don't win, it is an attack on your very identity, your very humanity is under attack when your political preferences don't get respected. I think it's a shitty way to go through life. Nobody ought to do that.
I just don't think it came close to being an actual overthrow.
No, I would say it's 10 miles from an overthrow. Yeah, 10 miles. We're 10 miles from an overthrow, but what were they trying to accomplish at the time? They were the plan to gum up the works was put together by people in the White House. And I've watched those January 6th hearings. I think Trump knew about that plan to gum up the works. They had a specific goal in mind to not allow those votes to be certified on that day.
Sure, and at best harebrained. I mean, come
It's
on.
a yeah, it's a shit plan. It's not a good plan, but that was the plan. One, don't let the votes finish, and then hire lawyers who then read the Constitution and say these votes shall, shall is an important word, be ratified on this day on January 6th. And then then your lawyer says, hey, they were not, says they shall be, but they weren't. That makes Joe Biden illegitimate. That was the plan. That was the overall top of the pyramid plan. Hey, Constitution says they shall be counted on this day. They weren't. Start a lawsuit. Create the loophole that you get to sue them over, and then you get to say that Joe Biden is illegitimate. And those people were, and everybody at the Jan 6 rally was duped, was tricked, was lied to by the people they trust. And I don't think that it's over. And yes, it was still 10 miles away from actually working or overthrowing the government, because even if they had accomplished that one top of the pyramid goal, don't let them, they shall be counted on this day, and they weren't. Hence we sue. The suit would be thrown out. It would go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, that's what Trump wanted. Again, that's step two. Get to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court, since Trump thinks that they're loyal to him, would say, oh yeah, they weren't, so we have to do the count again, or we have to have another election, or the Supreme Court's going to make a decision or something like that. And he thought maybe that would give him a better chance. And it's not over. You might be tired of it, and you're right. It can be tiring, but it's not over. It's not done with. It will continue, and it might happen again.
Maybe.
But nothing new is happening. Oh, did you see all this? Extradition of El Chapo's son. 29 people died trying to arrest him.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I heard about this. There's a whole conflict going on down there now, huh?
Yeah, they are shooting at people and like war in the streets. Buses are burning and like it's all over the place.
Well, I'm sure we'll find a way to intervene in that conflict.
We already did. It was our idea.
Oh.
We wanted him extradited to America. We said to the Mexican government, hey, please bring us this guy. And they're like, okay. And then they went to war to bring us the guy.
That is unexpected. I won't lie. My typical perception of the Mexican government is that they're under the thumb of the cartels.
Maybe they don't want to be. Or maybe we figured out who is and who isn't under the thumb, and we went to the people who aren't. I don't know. 10 soldiers and 19 suspects were killed. Furious gang members set up roadblocks, set fire to dozens of vehicles, and attacked planes at a local airport. They were just shooting at local, actual planes that had nothing to do with this thing, because they were trying to distract and gum up the works. So they were firing into the air at planes that were taking off. But we got him, I guess. It was expensive. Cost a lot, but extradited by helicopter and flown to the capital before being taken to a maximum security federal prison.
Now the question is, what happens next? Does he somehow miraculously escape and...
That's what usually happens, is they pay the people off. They pay off enough people to help them escape.
Or does he end up extradited in the end? That's, I think, what's really the question to watch.
Right. The drug war actually went to war. So... Have you seen this shipping container wall?
Yeah. I wonder if that's. I have to. I'm not sure what that wall was built for. I know that there was a whole shipping problem where there was major congestion, and I'm sort of wondering if um, the wall was just a matter of convenience, where now that shipping congestion is starting to ease, we're able to start filling containers again, and we need those containers to start shipping product.
No, he built a wall. Ducey has said the containers placed at openings along the border near the western community of Yuma and across the grassland valley in eastern Arizona's Cochise County were intended as a temporary measure until Biden administration undertook permanent construction to secure the border.
Right. No, what I'm saying is, are those containers? Do they have a new use at this point? Because they were not being used previously. Was putting them there a matter of we already have this material, it's been built, it's just a matter of putting them there because they're not being used otherwise. And now that we have now that we have a use for them, the purpose that they're actually intended for, are we now moving them back to their intended purpose? Is my question. Was it
No.
an
The,
opportunistic move to build that container wall when we had a shipping crisis?
no. He wanted to build a wall, and he found something that could build a wall. He spent 95 million to put them there, and then 76
Yeah,
million to take them down.
95 million is a pittance compared to what it would cost to actually build the materials specifically for a wall and build the wall there.
Right.
But
It,
we had these containers.
right. So
So when the containers are being taken down, my next question is, where are they now going?
back to they're either going to be, if the government bought them, they're going to sell them back, or they'll use them, or sell them to somebody who wants to use shipping containers. Um, but that's probably why it's 76 million to take them down, because you got to put them away and then you can resell them, and that brings down your cost. But it was nonsense and a waste of time and a political stunt. Very $95 million, or actually 95 plus 75 plus $76 million stunt that accomplished nothing. Much like what I have been saying about the wall forever, it doesn't do what they think it does. Mr. Ducey is wrong in the idea that building a wall will solve economic problems. It won't. It causes them.
Um, mm, First of all, it was called a stunt by his opponent.
Uh huh. I'll call it a stunt. I mean,
Sure.
do you think it wasn't?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so it was a
Now, this is
good
the
idea,
person that
or
replaced him that is taking it down, right?
yes,
Yeah, so he was the former governor, and now the current governor is a Democrat and is taking the wall down.
yes,
And now she's calling it a stunt.
yes.
On what grounds?
The fact that it didn't do anything and cost a lot of money and didn't solve the problem,
How do you know it didn't do anything?
because immigration's still a problem. I mean, the
Well, of course
immigration
it
still
is.
happens.
But
It didn't
immigration
prove
happens in specific areas,
right,
right?
and it happens in those areas, and this wall will not stop it. The wall is a very large waste of money, but it's a large waste of money that Republican voters can see, so they like it.
I don't know. I like it, but you know,
It didn't accomplish
if
anything.
he's
I don't want to
if
spend.
immigration is still a problem, and there's certain places where people are coming through, if you put up a wall and they have to go around the wall, then you have then yes, it might not fix immigration, but they have to come in at different areas, right? Which means that in terms of Arizona, if that wall caused them to come in a different state, then it has done something for Arizona. So the question is, did that border wall impact immigration to Arizona?
Mm, I
Illegal
don't
immigration specifically.
think so.
Well, it's a good question to ask, isn't it?
Let's see how long it was. 3,800 feet. A wall that was made out of shipping containers that was 3,800 feet. And it cost 95 million. Good lord. Um, this is wasted money.
Yeah, that's not big enough.
It's unnecessary. You think it's wasted money because it should have been larger. I think it's I think it's a waste of money because the wall doesn't do anything. It's unnecessary. It's that
Well, a wall that does something is necessarily large enough to prevent things just going around it.
sure, and
So,
and it won't solve the problem, and it'll be expensive, and then immigration will continue. Illegal immigration will continue, and the wall.
of course.
I'm saying that the wall, and the entire theory of building the wall along that border is wasteful nothing. It's a very expensive nothing. It's a very expensive waste, and the Republican voters see it and like it, even though it's useless. Illegal immigration will continue. Immigration will continue. And they will come in on planes and overstay their work visas, and the plane will go right over the border, right over the wall. And then they'll come in through the ports of entry and claim asylum and go right around the wall, go right through it. It does nothing, and it's expensive nothing. This is a fidget spinner. That's what this is. This is a $95 million fidget spinner.
Well, I'll agree with you about that wall.
Okay.
And I also agree with you that yes, we should have we need a lot of reforms to fix illegal immigration.
We're just going to disagree on how and what, I suspect.
Well, I'm sure that if I may take a guess, your solution to fixing illegal immigration is just make it all legal.
Right. You take down their names, you do a criminal investigation on them, you give them papers, and then let them go. And then there are no more uh, illegal immigrants because we immigrated them all. We made them into Americans.
Incredible.
Brilliant. I know. And then they start getting minimum wage, and then they can't work for pennies an hour anymore.
Yeah, but then working for minimum wage puts them below the national poverty standard, so we give them
They're
welfare.
if they're if they're
And
below the poverty standard when they're working for 17 cents an hour, they're already well below it.
so we don't give them government benefits.
Not
Is that
until
your point?
they've been here for a certain amount of time. And I'm willing to work on how much that time is. Maybe the 5 years, maybe 6 years. I don't know. I'd be willing to work on it to negotiate that. Sure.
Just check something real quick.
Sure. I mean, I'm okay with lines and rules and regulation. But yeah, I would create documentation for all these folks as they come in. Why are you here? Okay, what are you doing? You got a plan? You got somebody to live with? You have a place to stay? Okay, great. Have them stay at the port of entry until we do a background check, and if the background check comes out clean, then just okay. Here you go. Here's your temporary paperwork. You don't get government benefits, but you start paying taxes. Charge them if they go and get a job. They can have we charge them FICA tax, and then if they leave the country and stuff like that, we can keep track of it. We can document who's leaving and when. All kinds of fun stuff.
And of course, that's what we need the 87,000 IRS agents for.
There you go. See, they can keep track of that instead of hassling more poor people. Yeah.
And how would you handle remittances?
Remittance. What do you mean?
As in, most of the time, what they come here to do is they make money and they send a bunch of money back to their families outside the country.
That'll be on their taxes, right? I mean, you made X amount of money.
Well, you have to be able
you spent it.
You have to be able to track the.
Well, okay. The government doesn't track where I spend my money. They don't know how much I spent on video games. They just know how much I made. And I mean, the IRS just tells me how much I made, and then how much I put into FICA, and how much I put into this, and how much I put into that, but not I spent $7 at Taco Bell yesterday. I usually don't get that much, but if I am sending, okay, theoretically, person comes here, they go through my system, they get here, they send their money to Mexico. So what?
Well, the so what is that remittances current, which we are able to track this. Remittances are totaling an estimated $600 billion as of 2015 that are leaving money that's leaving the country.
So what?
So that's not good.
That's
who
cares?
It's not good for money to leave the country.
Money to leave the country. They're sending it to Mexico where it gets spent also. I mean, so what? If we stop those people from coming here, they won't do the work. I mean, that's also bad for the economy. I mean, I mean, you say remittance is bad. I just don't know why.
The only thing I have is impact of remittances on the receiving country, which, yes, it helps the receiving country.
Well, sure. Money helps the receiving country. But that country's full of people, and those people use that money. And if they're buying stuff, and I mean, it's a global market now, right? I mean, what are they buying in Mexico with that
Some
stuff?
cases.
Food, rent, products. So, not worried about it. How much of our stuff is built in Mexico, you know?
Too much.
Did you say too much or not much?
I said too much.
Too much, okay. Maybe. I agree with
Too
you
much
there.
stuff is built outside the United States in general.
Maybe I'm a futurist and I'm leaving that to the poorer countries to lift themselves up. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
the problem is that the
not-
development of our own technology is, or not our own technology, but that the development of our own materials, the production of them, is a national security issue. The more things that we outsource to other countries, the worse our national security position is. For example, if China decides that they don't like us anymore and we're going to go to war with you,
Mm-hmm.
well, we lose about 80% of our pharmaceutical industry.
Mm-hmm.
We actually can no longer provide the necessary medicine even to our soldiers, for example.
Hmm.
We also likely lose all of our chips, all of our semiconductors. We no longer will have the materials to build new planes, new tanks, even new cars. Any vehicle that requires a semiconductor chip, no, we can't build those anymore because we build all that shit in Taiwan. And what's China's first target going to be when they go to war with us? Taiwan.
Hmm. And why hasn't any of that happened yet? Because China would lose all the money that we're giving them. So they're
Capitalism is working
economically
on our favor there.
right. Capitalism is working in our favor. I was about to say, I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm about to say it. Uh, Liberal capitalism. I don't know. Well, capitalism there is working in our favor and preventing wars.
Yes, I'm saying that eventually war does occur.
Eventually,
Uh,
war does occur.
And
Not if we
if and
make
when
it
it does,
economically
we do
impossible.
need to be sufficient enough or self-sufficient enough to sustain ourselves when that happens.
Um, I mean, that's a nice. I don't think it will happen. If war with America is going to ruin, and I mean it will ruin China's economy. They won't do it.
Present, it will ruin any economy, which is why we are the world power.
Right. Which is why they
However,
won't do it. And if you
we
build
are
your economy properly, you can make war avoidable. You can avoid war with all this economy.
we are we are starting to see the cracks. At
You think?
present, it will ruin any economy because the United States is, or the not the United States dollar
Hmm.
is the world currency
Hmm.
at the moment. It's the world reserve currency. Everybody trades everything in dollars.
Right.
However, we are starting to see the cracks in that system. Countries are moving away from the USD as reserve currency. We're primarily seeing that at the moment between China and a handful of countries over there, including Russia. Um, uh, just about all of Russia's allies are starting to move away from the United States dollar as their reserve currency. At some point, the fact that we don't produce anything anymore and we only consume is going to bite us in the ass. As our currency loses its status as the world reserve, that is going to come back to haunt us. If and that's it, because once we lose our status as world currency, if we're not producing, our dollar loses a ton of value. And when our dollar loses all that value, we cease to be our capitalism ceases to be the defense that it currently is.
I admit that is true. I think that is correct. But
So we need to be able to produce our own shit.
we need to be able to produce some of it. Yes, that's fine. If we, why is China doing that? Because they want more power. I mean, it's
Of
global
course,
global economics is difficult. But
it's a
if
geopolitical game
if
that
they're
all
if
countries are playing.
if they're doing it just to increase their own power, then do we let them? I mean, I think we should. Uh, if if we're going to, well, I mean, we have to do it in equal parts, I suppose. Uh, if if economics is preventing war, that's good. If economics is causing war, that's bad. But if just soldiers is preventing war, then we need some of both. We need a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and we do have a foothold on the world stage um, in just about every nation. But the the issue is that China is becoming a powerhouse on the back of their capability to produce.
Okay.
They produce so much stuff at this point that even during a recession, for example, or a cataclysmic shift in world politics and in the world geopolitical situation, they'll be okay.
Okay.
We're going to have some problems, like the ones I described earlier.
Mm-hmm. And that's not a surprise. I mean, we can see that coming. So, what do you suggest we do about it? Start building more of our own stuff?
Yes.
I mean, I'm okay with that idea, but how do you? I think I see a direction here. Uh, how do you convince a company to do that?
Well, you have two ways to do that. You can, and I think there's a combination of the two. You
Mm-hmm.
can incentivize them to produce things here, or you can punish them for producing things elsewhere.
And who would do that? The government?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's government regulation.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page there. So yeah, government regulation. And so you're talking like tariffs and tax cuts for people who build things in the country.
Yep.
Okay.
Um, Even incentives in terms of like subsidies for building certain types of materials plants, for example,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I know that the government already is doing. We passed the CHIPS Act within the last year or two, I believe, which is meant to bring semiconductor or building to the United States, at least somewhat, because the semiconductors are going to end up being one of the major uh, sources of power for nations for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where our the capacity for technological warfare comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So having the edge on that is a big deal. Right now, most semiconductor manufacturing is happening over in Taiwan.
Right. Yeah, I don't love the idea that everything's built in one place. I think that is a bad idea. Um, but I still support the idea of economics preventing uh, ground wars. Um, the Russian folks, Russia right now uh, is suffering. Their economy is suffering because of the war in Ukraine, and I think that is. I think everybody's paying attention to it, obviously, but I mean, I think China is seeing that. Hey, if you go to a ground war, your economy suffers severely,
Well,
and I think.
Russia is suffering because their primary export is energy,
Mm-hmm.
primarily natural gas and oil, uh, as well as actually they do produce some amount of food, um, as well as Ukraine. Ukraine is a major exporter of fertilizer and wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Russia is also. Um, but yes, their economy is suffering mostly because a lot of countries have refused to do trade with them as a result of the Ukraine invasion.
Right, and if China did that to us, then they would stop trading with China,
Yeah, the
and it would
problem is that
suffer.
much like and yes, Russia's economy is suffering, but there are countries that are willing to trade with them, and even the countries that say they won't trade with them are still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
For example, uh, most of the NATO countries actually can't afford to lose Russian energy, or they couldn't when the war first started, and they've found ways over time to mitigate that, and they've reduced their purchases of Russian energy. But I don't think any country has managed to cease completely doing trade with them.
Okay.
China produces so much stuff that there's no country that will ever be able to afford right now to completely cease trading with them.
Okay, and that is an economic ploy. It's a choice that they made to empower themselves, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah, they do that on purpose.
They did that on purpose to
specifically
strengthen
like
themselves.
they make deregulated zones and whatnot to entice companies to build their facilities in China
Mm-hmm.
where they're under Chinese control. and they exercise a lot of power over there over those companies. Any company that develops a technology in China, that technology is 100% guaranteed to be stolen by Chinese companies as well, because China requires that if you build anything over there, China has to know how it was built.
Right. Yeah. And then so they're bending the rules. They're playing rough. They're being cutthroat.
Exactly. They say, hey, you can build your factory over here. You know, it costs you $10 billion to build that factory in the United States. It costs you $1 billion to run and maintain it here, or to build and maintain it here. So build it over here. Oh, but also, when you develop technology and you build it in that factory in China, we get to know what that technology is and how you're building it. And then they go around and they build their own version of it.
Okay.
You know,
And
China's intellectual property theft is a major reason for bringing companies out of there,
mhm.
because
Yeah,
we
I
don't
agree.
want them to have our intellectual property.
Right. Yeah, that seems like they're uh, stealing and taking things. I dig that. Stealing is a form of empowerment, and now they're stronger because of it. Um, but can we not? I mean, they're doing that so they never get invaded, right? I mean, everybody's doing these things too, so that they will be protected from war.
Well, to the topic of to bring it back for a second, you asked why. You asked the topic was Mexico,
Hmm.
and the question of uh, how much manufacturing do we have over in Mexico?
Hmm.
And I said too much, and we need to build things here.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of Mexico, my problem is national security, yes, because Mexico is obviously an easier invasion threat than the United States. So, for example, country goes to war with us, their target's not going to be a land, a a land side or a ground invasion directly in the United States. Like they're
Hmm.
not going to come from the sea and land in Los Angeles or in
Right.
yeah, they're not pulling into LALB
Right. I
and
gotcha.
dropping off their troops. They're going to Mexico first, dropping off the troops there and heading north.
Okay.
Um, so there's that problem in terms of national defense.
So,
We quickly lose our defense capability there. However,
if I could offer a
the
real
other
quick
problem is
solution to that is to enrich Mexico with remittances. But I'm trolling you now. Go ahead.
yeah, you are a little bit. um, but the second problem is an economic one. You send all this stuff over to Mexico to be built. It means that you are not only are you having money come out of the countries for the stuff that's being built in the United States to go to Mexico, or to the country of origin for because Mexico only accounts for like a third of the 600 billion. So you're talking like $200 million goes to Mexico for
Hmm.
remittances.
Hmm.
Um, not only does that money come out of our economy and into the Mexican economy, but the manufacturing industry not being in the United States also means that it costs us jobs. It costs us not only the ability to produce that stuff here, but it costs us um, the number of people that otherwise would be paid, you know, an
Two.
actual salary or wage
Hmm.
in the United States,
Hmm.
um, where these companies that are outsourcing to Mexico are able to pay somebody, like you said, 17 cents on the dollar to go work at the factory.
Hmm.
They would have to be paying people a reasonable wage in the United States. So you
Right.
have a multifaceted issue there.
Right.
Yes, we get goods for cheaper. Is that worth the um, amount of labor or the amount of jobs that we lose
Hmm.
by sending those factories over there? Because, and I'll take this from your standpoint for a second. that's something that's very beneficial to the companies.
Hmm.
But is it really beneficial to the United States?
It depends on who you ask. Yeah, you're like you said, it's beneficial to the company. It's beneficial to the Walmart shopper who's getting cheap Chinese goods at Walmart. Um, it's beneficial to uh, the CEOs who have a bottom line to hit. Um, is it the best idea for the country? Probably not. I don't think it is. Us being more manufacturally independent would be a good idea. I'm all right with that idea. Um, and I don't. And yeah, we get back to the two powers. Either the government has to regulate that type of idea, or um, the companies have to do it. But we've seen what they do when they're in charge. They outsource to India. They outsource to uh, lots of other cheap places to get those cheap goods. So they outsource to China until China becomes too expensive, and then honestly, what we have to do is sneak over to China and start a union.
Jesus Christ, you'd be slaughtered immediately.
I know it's not an easy job, but then the next one, then the next person gets to try, and then you go over to Indonesia and start a union, workers' union,
Well,
and
if
then
that's the plan, more power to you.
but
Holy shit.
let's imagine that somebody did that, and then the first 10 people got murdered, and then the 11th one kind of got a toehold. I mean, what would happen? The a basic workers' union would happen, and they wouldn't make 17 cents an hour anymore. They'd make 25, and then they'd get Sundays off, you know, and that would put them closer to where the American worker would be. It wouldn't
Well, when
be
you find
on
the
par.
first 11 people to be willing to put their lives on the line for such a cause, let me know.
Well, it wouldn't be me. It would be Chinese people who are fed up with the system they're under. It would be their revolution. Um, People die in revolutions, right? And sometimes they're worth it. Uh, but that would just, I think, extend the problem because then all the companies would leave. Walmart wouldn't get all their stuff from China anymore. They'd get it from Bangladesh, and then we'd have to go to Bangladesh and start a union, and then Bangladesh would get too expensive, and then they'd go to Indonesia, and then Indonesia would be. We have to go to Indonesia and start a union, and then everybody's in a union.
Well, only certain countries are really players in this scenario. The let's see, China, Russia. I guess if you were to count the EU as, for all intents and purposes, economically one nation,
Hmm.
um, and of course the United States, Canada in some instances, uh, and also certain South American countries are really players in that scenario because they're where all of the resources are. Oh, and
Okay.
also some countries in the Middle East, they're very energy rich. Um, Africa does have certain advantages, especially like I believe they have a high concentration of diamonds. Um, but it's going to come down to resources
Right.
that make a particular country a major candidate for that kind of a change, or at least for that kind of outsourcing, because the part of the benefit of outsourcing for a company is that when you move to another country, you've got less costs of bringing materials in.
Hmm.
So if China is a major producer of steel, which it is, then you have a much lower cost of. Oh, and also China has much more relaxed regulations on their steel manufacturing. Their steel manufacturing produces way more emissions than the steel manufacturing in the United States, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes it a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So because China can make its steel at such a cheap price, they're paying their workers to make steel less. They're paying the miners to get the materials to make steel a lot less. And they have less regulations on how to make it, which means that they can make it a lot cheaper. Well, when you build a factory in China, it costs you a lot less because the cost of materials is so much less.
Mm-hmm.
But when a country straight up just doesn't have the raw materials or anywhere to put something to build the raw materials, then they're not really major players in terms of economic production, I'd say.
Right, and China's been working real hard on this. I've got the Belt and Road Initiative right here on screen, and that's their plan, is to like build stuff in all these other countries and uplift them, honestly, to make them Chinese allies. And we could do that. We should do that.
China's got, I think, a little more of a motive to make them. Well, there's no shot that China's actually planning on building roads in Europe. Based on that map there. No way. I don't believe it.
This is their plan. They may not all get 100% approved, but
I would be willing to bet that they would. They'd be building roads and whatnot into neighboring countries, especially all those smaller ones to their south.
Mm-hmm.
In order to sort of make them vassal states.
If Europe wants to buy Chinese goods, wouldn't they get it along this route right here?
That is true.
I mean, if that's China's plan, right? Make all the stuff and then sell it to all the countries. So if they're making all the stuff in China here, they gotta send it over there. And yeah, it's an economics game. I dig it.
Yeah, they're currently going for that old Civ 5 economics victory.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. And I never played Civ 5, but does that prevent war?
Oh hell no.
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 Okay.
If you get too entrenched in an economics, or you're coming close to any kind of victory, then some country is going to end up going to war over it.
Okay.
To prevent, you from doing that.
Okay.
Which the United States, by the way, has been known to do.
Okay. How did we get here? Oh, we were talking about Mexico. So, wild idea. What if we allowed the people to go back and forth between Mexico and America? We didn't give a damn about remittances, and it made Mexico more prosperous.
Well, it naturally would, because it's sort of like having
wouldn't that make
glass having
us stronger? Because now we don't have that security risk along the southern border.
In some ways it could. In other ways it wouldn't.
Because that money's
leaving
leaving
things again,
the country?
Yeah, because, well, that money's going to be leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like, think of it as having a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can increase the size of that glass, and the water, if the water remains the same, then your water level, or rather you increase the width of the glass, right? Your water level is going to be lower.
Okay.
You see what I'm going for? There's the same amount of water in the glass. You expand the width of the glass, now your water level goes down.
Sure.
That's kind of what it looks like to me when you just go with the open borders strategy. And the free trade open border strategy is you expand the size of your glass, which means that the water level comes down. You're going to end up with an economic situation where the country with greater economic output is going to be, or the standard of the economy in the country with greater economic output is going to be reduced by engaging in free trade with the economy of another country with lower economic output.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over time, yes, the increase in resources availability, the increase in the availability of labor and whatnot is going to eventually cause the water level to continue to rise again. Yes. But again, that's one of those things where you have to say, okay, is the initial pain that we're going to feel, and we don't know how long we're going to feel it for,
Mm-hmm.
worth the eventual benefit? And that could be a benefit that comes very slowly. Let's say that the economy will grow an additional 0.5% per year, but the fact that we allowed the open borders and free trade caused your average wage to decrease by 50%. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah. Okay.
Here,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like I'm just saying, like in a worst case scenario, you lose your average wage decreases by 50%, but you'll guarantee that your economy will grow like 0.5% or 1% faster than it otherwise would every year.
Okay. Yeah, I could see how it could go wrong. But I don't think, well, I mean, economics is my weakest subject, but free trade, I don't think that that's what I'm pushing for. I'm pushing for free people and government intervention in trade. Free the
I must
people.
have misunderstood what you meant there then.
Okay, I don't know exactly. I don't know if you and I, if those words free trade, I don't think you and I even would agree on what that is or what, or maybe I don't know what it is. It's very, very likely that I don't even know what it is. But I would say free people and government restriction on trade, or government, not restriction, but regulations on trade. So if free trade means no government oversight, then I'm not for it. But I could see how free trade would cause issues in the race to the bottom. That's what everybody calls it, right? The race to the bottom, to find the cheapest place to manufacture.
Yeah.
If they're paying their workers 27 cents in China, but 15 cents in Indonesia, you go to Indonesia. I don't like that idea, and I would suggest that we have government interaction to prevent such a thing.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with you.
Okay. We found a thing we agree on. Lord have mercy. Let's see. I think that was all for the news at the moment. Yeah, I don't have anything else specifically newsy going on.
Well, there was a lot to catch up on this time around.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, yeah.
It's been about 3 weeks since we last streamed.
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, it was Christmas. It was New Year's. I always have work to do. And then putting lights on a house and then taking lights off of a house. Buying the kid all kinds of cool stuff that he ignores to play Super Nintendo games, as you can see. And anything important you wanted to bring up, or hot topics?
We should talk about ideas, I think, in our next, well, we sort of did in this one after we got through the news.
Mm-hmm.
We have healthcare scheduled for our next week.
That sounds like a good idea.
We should have a list of like our topics that we
Sure,
I
can write stuff down. Yeah, I think healthcare is a good idea, because I think it is the start, the seed, the solution to a lot of things that could make the country better. I think if we nationalized the entire system, people would get used to the idea of nationalization of something like that, and then they wouldn't be as fearful of the government if it's done right. But again, everything gets corrupted. I think it's the money and the capitalism that's corrupting everything. But um, if we can make a system that isn't corrupted by money and capitalism, I think the people would benefit.
Okay.
But again, the only way to prevent capitalist corruption is government, which again gets corrupted by capitalism. It's a never-ending cycle that I don't know how to fix.
Let's see. Let's do a big idea. Let's do
Sure. What do you got?
well, I suppose. How do you label yourself? A socialism or
Mm,
communism or what?
I would be a market socialist.
Okay.
The idea is that again, that's the two powers again, right? There's a market for uh, capitalism and money and stuff, and then there's social, which is the government. So you would need a proper balance of the two. Um, too much government gives us a stifling, uncreative, bureaucratic state that does nothing. I don't like that. But too much capitalism, too much market, gives us company towns from the old coal miners in the 1920s. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So the only thing that can stop that is government regulation. So you need both, and you need them in proper balance. And I think we are far too capitalistic in the country at the moment. The fact that insulin uh, costs this much money, and uh, health insurance is a giant thing that gets CEOs rich and poor people die without having it, and uh, lobbyists are paying uh, the government workers. The lobbyists are paying, essentially bribing the government, and even to run for office to do a good thing for the people, you need millions and millions of dollars in ads and revenue and uh, money. So I think we are tilted way too far on the market side and not enough on the government side at the moment.
I see. So, would you say it's fair to say that our positions are regulated capitalism versus market socialism?
Okay, yeah. If
Okay.
that is the way you would describe yourself as a regulated capitalism.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so you and yeah, and as I said earlier, the the thing we ought to be doing is just arguing how much government and how much capitalism. Do you think we're out of whack right now within those two competing forces?
Yes.
Okay, which one's stronger and how strong should it be?
It depends on the industry
Hmm.
and on the subject in question. So, like, if you're talking about international markets versus national ones,
Hmm.
and if you're talking about uh, certain industries, like we touched on, space travel today.
Hmm.
We uh, touched on global trade. It depends. Um, I'm in favor of more regulations in some areas and a lot less in others, and I'm also in favor of a lot less government in some areas and a
Hmm.
little more government in others.
And
So
when,
I think we disagree on what
yeah,
areas that regulation belongs in
right, and I
and
think,
how much of it.
yeah, and I think this is the actual nailing those two things down is what ought to be uh, debated within the government. I think Matt Gaetz should be describing what regulations ought to be put in place and which ones aren't, shouldn't be. And uh, the left would say, no, we want these And then AOC can say, hey, we think that regulation hurts these people, and we suggest this regulation, or the lack of regulation for this thing and that thing. But that's not what
Yeah,
politics
the
is.
idea of just, hey, we should deregulate everything or we should regulate everything is, I think, silly.
Right,
I think there's a time and place.
and I agree. I mean, I'm willing to give up the post office if UPS can do it better. I'm willing to give up NASA if SpaceX is doing a better job with it. Um, I'm willing to let the government go into debt to create, maybe not create, but like uh, experiment with space travel or delivering mail. That used to be an experiment. That used to be impossible. Uh, but they experimented with it. They figured out how to do it well, and then a company comes along and says, "Hey, I think I can do this better if we cut out these steps and we do this. Can I do that?" I think that's a fine idea. That is the socialist becoming the market. That's fine. Um, that is the transfer from one of the powers to the other power, and I think that we ought to be exploring that and how to do it properly. And right now, I think the capital side is run amok. The money side is absolutely dictating all the choices, all the policies, all of the ideas are being dictated and monopolized by them.
Okay. And you know what? Part of my argument next week, I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you what,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a warning on this one, is going to be that some of our issues that we had, or that we have in healthcare and the insurance industry in general, is actually the result of attempting to regulate and doing it poorly.
And that wouldn't surprise me. I'm gonna. It might be the same as the college situation where I'm suggesting that the government's doing a thing and people are being greedy, just at the free money spigot or whatever. So it might go into that situation, but it might not. I don't know. I'll bring some things and some links and some ideas and just a basic plan, and maybe we'll draw it out or we'll have a drawstring where I draw things.
Ah, a good old paint stream. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
MS Paint Stream. Um, what else could we go over? Healthcare. When I mean it's not anytime soon, but when midterm or when the stuff start, when the elections start, we could watch the primaries and stuff like that, or we could just watch clips. We could watch them live.
Ooh,
I could live stream them, and then we'll boo at them.
I guess primaries would be starting this year, huh? Holy shit.
Yeah, it's 23. The election's in November 24, and
Elections 24.
so
Yeah.
we're a couple of months off from the very beginning. So I think
Jesus. I forgot that the whole cycle is like over a year long.
hmm
It's so ridiculous.
yeah, if I remember, yeah, I think the primaries are going to start about in the next 6 months or so. It's probably the summer. When is? I suppose I could look that up. When is the next Republican primary? Because those are going to be a shit show. They're going to be a nightmare. Kanye's going to be live streaming if he's not on the stage.
Well, he has to get the votes in order to get into the primary in the first place, though. I don't think they're even going to do the legwork for it. Because you have to get on the ballot in every state, which requires, I think, 500 signatures from each state. And I think that's too much for the ragtag gang they've put together.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, Kanye won't even be on the ballot.
Um, I don't see any dates on this funky website, but
I will say, if he
between
manages to get on the ballot,
February to June.
I would be impressed.
Yeah. So we might even be a year away from the actual primaries, but the very early stuff is going to start this summer. Um, yeah, if he gets on any of the ballots, it might be fun. So yeah, that's upcoming stuff. I need a catchphrase. I'll write some catchphrases. We'll practice catchphrases. Oh, you know what else I wanted to do? I wanted to use an AI art thing to create a pause screen for the channel.
Oh, here's one. And I think we'll probably cover capitalism versus socialism on just about every stream.
Mm-hmm.
But here's one that might take that could actually be a stream in itself for multiple streams. Topic: does reality have a liberal bias?
Okay. I wouldn't mind talking about that. And
That was one of the first things I thought of as one of your catchphrases.
Yeah.
You said it in almost every stream.
And we can talk about what it means even. I mean, we'll go down to like, what does that sentence mean? What do I mean when I say that sentence? Stuff like that.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear it.
And then I mean, I've been, I have a whole lot of very nice things to say about belief, in quotes. I could rant about that for a very long time. Because I consider that I don't have any beliefs. I don't have any. And I strive not to have any. I don't believe that it's cloudy outside right now. I think that it is. I don't believe that my mother's my mother. I think she is, based on the evidence presented to me. And I think Republican politics.
So you're using the religious definition of belief, which would be the acceptance of something without evidence.
The acceptance of something without evidence, and I think that the right-wing politicians and the heavily religious people have a lot in common. They've been right next to each other for a very long time, and I think the right-wing politicians have been using the word belief incorrectly to describe political stances, and convincing the religious people that that belief is more important. And hey, trickle down tax policy. You can find conservative people who will say we believe in trickle down tax policy. We believe, and
you're using definition 5, belief, which is a conviction of the truth of a given proposition or an alleged fact resting upon grounds insufficient to constitute positive knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and I think Republican politicians play fast and loose with the definition of belief to hornswoggle and trick and confound and confuse their own voters.
Well, there's a lot
intentionally.
of different definitions of belief. There's that one is actually the 5th. The first is to place trust or confidence in someone, to have belief in someone.
Okay. And then why not say trust and confidence? I trust this person.
And that's to say I believe you, as in if you're telling me the truth, or if I think you're telling me the truth, I believe you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there you've got mental acceptance of and conviction in the truth, actuality or validity of something. And this one is similar to number 5, but this one doesn't include the part that includes resting upon grounds insufficient to constitute positive knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got Then there's another religious one actually at number 3, which is something believed or accepted as true, um, especially as a particular tenet or a body of tenets accepted by a group of persons.
That's
And then you've
probably the one.
got
Yeah.
confidence reposed in any person or thing, faith, trust, as in a child's belief in his parents.
Hmm.
So you're using the belief definition that is the tenets or body of tenets is accepted by a group of persons, or maybe the one that's um, conviction of the truth resting upon grounds insufficient to constitute positive knowledge.
Right. And the idea that I've been wrestling with is that uh, depending on the situation, a politician will use the word belief but mean a different one of those definitions.
Yeah, that's the whole language of politics is
Right.
doublespeak.
Right. And so they're throwing out number 3, but in fact they're suggesting that they are number 1. They say I'm number 1. I'm the first definition, but they're actually using fourth. And I think it's a weasel word. I think it's a bad word that I'm not gonna use to describe anything. Um, I think it's a bad term that I would like to avoid myself. Um,
Okay.
and why I think it's a bad term and why I want to avoid it and how it's harming people.
So is that a topic of your
Maybe
opinion?
it might just be me ranting at some point. So if
Uh,
I do go on a rant about belief or something along those lines, I think uh, it's something that I might go off on a rant about.
sure. You probably won't get a lot of pushback from me on that one. I don't
Yeah.
think I
Um,
use the word a lot,
yeah, and
but
and I don't remember you ever using it. But if you were, yeah, and I would only argue with somebody if they were actually using it, in a way. I think it was God, it was how did I get on this subject? A long, long time ago. I was watching some horrible reality TV show that my old lady was watching, and this very redneck person was like, well, "I don't believe in gay marriage." I was like, "What do you mean you don't believe in it? You can say you don't accept it. You can say you don't uh, support it. You can say you don't think it's a good idea, but I don't believe in it. What does that even mean? Why do you believe? Why do you have a belief like that? Where did this belief come from? How did it get there? I think it was put there by somebody who is manipulating you. Anybody who uses the word believe a lot is either a manipulator or manipulated. But again, I'm ranting. Um, and yeah, so it's already been 2.5 hours. That's enough for me. I have to eat lunch and do stuff around the house. Um, but yeah, I am going to work on might have Kyle draw something, or I'll use an AI. And I know how controversial that is at the moment.
oh well.
AI art. I'll use one of the AI chatbots to create a logo for the screen, and every time I pause or I swap to some other screen, I can, or as I'm preparing for a stream, it can show the AI art,
Nice.
and it'll be edgy because everybody will yell at me. Half the people will yell at me for using AI art, and the other half will be tech bros who love it.
Don't tell nobody.
Don't tell nobody. Okay, too late. Shit. I think I've told somebody. Um,
Delete the VOD.
oh no. What do we gotta do? Uh, but yeah, if I made an AI thing, I would definitely um, tell everybody like, hey, yeah, I used this AI bot to make a uh, symbol for the channel, and that's it.
All right. So
If
healthcare next week.
yeah, healthcare next week sounds good to me. I appreciate you coming on. It's super fun for me. This is fun.
Yeah, had a good time.
All right, cool. And we even had a chatter today. Um,
Yeah.
it is one of
Welcome,
my
chatter.
it is one of my best friends ever. So it's not like some random person, but or am
Gotta
I
get us
AI?
started somewhere.
Shoot,
Happy for every viewer.
look, the
And
the
he might be
chatter might be
AI.
an AI. He might be. I will investigate this. Um, I will chase them down and find out if they are a real person or a robot.
All right.
So that's what I'm going to do all week. All right. I will talk to you next week and let you know.
All right.
All right. Bye.